friends. It's almost midnight, and you found your way to the PikeCast. Come along as we careen through the catalog of the most formative horror writer of our young adult days, Christopher Pike. From adult perspectives, we'll revisit these YA books our parents probably would never have let us read had they known what lie inside. We tackle one book per episode in a freewheeling and unbiased chat. So grab your battered paperback, pull the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, climb under your bed covers, and devour a good book with us.
Greetings, fellow Pikers, and welcome to the PikeCast. I'm Cooper Beckett, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my lovely co-hosts.
Hello, I'm Cassie.
Hi, I'm Becca.
Today, we're digging into Christopher Pike's 1989 book, Remember Me, and we're going to be dissecting it in great detail, spoiling each and every plot twist, so consider yourself warned. If you're enjoying the PikeCast, please leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. And we are so thrilled to be welcoming today's guest piker, author of Horrorstor, My Best Friend's Exorcism, and Paperbacks from Hell, Grady Hendrix. Welcome to the PikeCast, Grady.
Thank you for having me, and I just want to be on the PikeCast so people remember me.
Well, I mean, this is a good one to be on. I'm going to play my cards up front. I absolutely adore this book. But before we get into the book, we have a few guest questions that we ask all of our guests. Cassie, you want to give that first question?
Yep. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you discovered Christopher Pike?
Yeah, I came to Pike really late and poorly. I had written this book called Paperbacks from Hell that was a history of horror paperbacks in the 70s and 80s. And I knew I had to include sort of R.L. Stine and Christopher Pike, and I'm too old to have read those guys growing up. And so I had to sort of talk about them because at the end of the horror paperback boom, it all kind of died in the early 90s. But what really survived and became very popular moving forward was everything was getting sort of YA oriented and middle grade oriented. And so, Pike and Stine were big and had their big flushes of fame in the early 90s. So I had to read some of them. And I read some R.L. Stine and hated it. And I read a couple of Pike books, but probably not the best ones. And I was going really fast. So they just got like a page in the original book. And then I wanted to write a sequel to it called Paperbacks from Hell 2, Think of the Children. And I wanted to write about sort of genre juvenile fiction from like 1967 to 1997, like those post-Outsiders, pre-Harry Potter years.
Yeah.
And so I started reading some Pike, and I read a couple more that I really didn't like. And then I read The Immortals. And I actually had read a little bit more R.L. Stine and hated it even more than the first time. But then I read The Immortals, and it really blew my mind. And so I just started reading a lot of Pike. And this was only like 2 years ago, and I just was blown away. I mean, he really is, when he's good, he's very, very good. Yeah. When he's bad, he's abysmal.
That's accurate. That's very accurate.
I mean, that could be the subtitle of the podcast occasionally, I think.
And I hadn't read Remember Me before you guys invited me to do the podcast. So my Remember Me experience is very fresh.
Excellent. What are your favorites that you've read?
Well, I feel like Pike sort of falls into, from the ones I've read, and realize I've probably only read like 20 or so, maybe a little more. But I feel like he falls into sort of two camps. And one is the kind of the murder mystery camp, stuff like what's the one? Oh gosh, the one that's like the Brian De Palma movie with the guy and he's taking the picture. He has
Oh,
the
that's
camera
Die
and the girl.
Softly. Yeah.
Die Softly. Yeah, the stuff like with the Sugar Sisters.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We love
So
the
like
Sugar
Die.
Sisters so
Oh, the
much.
Sugar Sisters are
Yes,
great.
I am
Yeah.
an Alexis stan, so I'm obsessed.
So like stuff like Die Softly and Fall into Darkness and Slumber Party and all that. So my favorite of that bunch is Gimme a Kiss, because Gimme a Kiss is just such a mean book. Oh my God, even the title
Yeah.
is so mean. And then the other category of Christopher Pike books are the ones that are batshit crazy. And out of those, I feel like my favorite is probably, for incoherence, it's Whisper of Darkness, just because when I realized what Whisper of Death, when I realized what Whisper of Death was about, like a ghost abortion traveling through time, like, I mean, just
I
like,
know, right?
oh my God, it's insane. But so Whisper of Death gets a big stars for just complete over the top ridiculousness, like, and probably the runner up's The Visitor. But the one I really, really love, because I think it's a legitimately good Pike book, that's like really rock solid. And it has Pike does this thing, where a lot of times, like, you feel like he just wastes time on someone describing a movie they're thinking about writing, or a book they're going to write one day. I mean, Remember Me Too falls victim to that a lot. The one that's the tightest I think, is Monster.
Oh, yeah.
Monster's really hardcore and really great. So yeah, so I think Monster and Gimme a Kiss gotta be my number one.
Nice. One of the things that we often talk about. See, Becca is new to Pike.
Yes.
She's learning to appreciate Pike as we go. Cassie and I both discovered Pike very early in our formative years, and one of the things that we have noticed that's reoccurring with people is when they discovered Pike, it was like a graduation from the R.L. Stine books into this new seedy world of drugs and sex and like real violence before they moved on to Stephen King, Clive Barker, all that.
Right.
And it is funny how Pike did something really that no other YA author was doing at the time, which is adding real stakes to the books and real violence and the titillation that's perfect for an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know a lot about his career, but he definitely comes out of that band of paperback original writers, and I think he was a paperback original writer, and I don't think did his books get published in hardcover?
I think some of his later ones did, but none of the early ones.
Yeah, and so I feel like one of the things with these paperback original writers in the 70s and 80s, and it's something the one thing I had to warn people about in the introduction to Paperbacks from Hell is the books have a lot of sex in them. And you read YA now, and I mean, it's hard to say YA, it's such a huge field, but in general, a lot of the YA I've read is relatively sexless, or if there's sex, the sex is kind of the point of the book. But a lot of the books are like, a lot of the genre books, there's romance and there's stuff like that, but no one really goes at it hot and heavy on the page. And Pike, man, people are drinking beer and getting blowjobs, and I mean, it's really like, yeah, I'm basically, there's a long-winded way of agreeing with what you just said.
Well, we do that a lot. So why don't we get started talking about tonight's book, Remember Me, and we dive into our section Magic Fire, where we talk about the aesthetics of the book. And for this discussion, we're talking about the original printing with the Brian Kotsky artwork, the good artwork of the girl at the bottom of the patio, not the weird remixed artwork from the new version. But we're going to read the back of the book first, and I think Cassie's got that tonight.
Yep. Okay. She didn't understand that she was dead. When Sherry Cooper awoke at home after being at her girlfriend's birthday party, her family acted like she wasn't there. They didn't hear a thing she said. They wouldn't even look at her. Then the call came from the hospital. Her father and brother paled. Her mother started to cry. Sherry didn't know what was wrong, not until she followed them to the hospital. There she found herself lying on a cold slab in the morgue. The police said that it was suicide. Sherry knew she had been murdered. Making a vow to herself to find her killer, Sherry embarks on the strangest of all criminal investigations, one in which she spies on her friends and even enters their dreams, where she comes face to face with a nightmare from beyond the grave. The shadow, a thing more horrible than death itself, is the key to Sherry's death, and the only thing that can stop her murderer from murdering again. Dun dun dun.
I think that's a fairly accurate summary, except for that last line.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think I don't think the shadow has anything to do with her murderer murdering again.
Well,
she
and may I just
realizes.
say that I didn't read the back of the book until yesterday, and I'm really glad I didn't, because the three false expectations it would set up for me immediately is that the book starts with Sherry Cooper waking up dead, when in fact it takes like 4 very long chapters for her to get dead. Second, the shadow is really a whole lot of nothing. Like the shadow's the shadow's stupid.
Yeah.
And then 3, you get the impression from the back of the book that Sherry has to solve the mystery of her own death to keep the killer from killing again, but the killer has no desire to kill anyone. Well, I guess, never mind. I take that one back, because she does try to kill Sherry's brother.
Yes.
So yeah. But I guess it gives me the impression the killer is some kind of serial killer, and really it's just her sister.
And we really enjoy these back of the books, because sometimes they're flagrantly inaccurate. Sometimes they have completely different names.
They do.
Like the worst offender is The Midnight Club, which sets you up to believe it's a book about monsters when it's a book about storytelling.
Well, I wondered, like when I was listening to y'all read this just then, I was like, is this a Pike thing where sometimes the back cover is just wrong?
Yes. Yeah. And more, it's like, here's a lurid reason you should read the book, but it's not actually in the book.
Well, so do you all know much about his working process or anything?
Not a lot. He is notoriously quiet about his work. All we really know about him is that he works really quickly, and that the publishing basically needs the description and the artwork and everything early.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is I wonder if these back of the back jacket blurbs, like they get him to send an outline, would be my guess, early on, and then the book radically changes later as he writes it.
And the same thing with the cover art. Brian Kotsky is this artist, and we absolutely love his work here. And I think this is one of the best bits of cover art in Christopher Pikedom. Like this completely tells me what this is about. The ghost hand on the front, the girl on the bottom, even the water. It's so noir. It's so like Miami in the 80s. I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I got to say, it works well with the title. Like some of Pike's books, I feel like the title just sits there, like The Eternal Enemy, or Wicked Heart, but I feel like this one, it's a dead girl. It's a little bit to me like Give Me a Kiss. Like, I love the title, but it doesn't work great with the cover art of the girl drowning under the sailboat.
Right.
Monster, I think, is one that works great. But this one, it's like a dead girl and Remember Me. So you're like, I didn't even notice the ghost hands till later. Yeah. But I assumed it was told from the point of view of a ghost, because you got a corpse and it's, in red neon sort of script. Remember Me.
I love it. What do you girls think? Pretty
accurate?
It's
accurate. Yeah, I like it. It's good.
Definitely. The artwork especially. But I wanted to go back to Grady talking about how he thought this was about a serial killer. And once again, this is one of those times where Pike had a better idea right in front of him and didn't run with it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like, because I also get the feeling that he's a first draft writer. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think this is a dude who does a lot of revisions. Like, we can get to this later, but I read Remember Me too as well. And like there's mismatches between the books and like what people are wearing and things like that. So I feel like this is a dude who just like turns in his outline, goes with the flow, and writes fast.
I think so too. And we often will see him sort of find himself in a dead end. And then work around it. So there's this thing that's in it that like, wow, that didn't have to be in it at all. But clearly, he's very likely a seat of your pants writer, and he'll copy edit, I imagine, but doesn't actually like redraft much.
Yeah, and I also got to say, and because this is audio and not visual, you can't see me pour out a little Ford of my 40 in respect. But um, I really appreciate that as far as my reading of Pike is gone, he never once resorts to the R.L. Stine jump scare,
No,
which
that's true.
is, and because you're right, he gets in these end of chapter cliffhangers, and it would be very easy in a lot of them for him to just be like, oh, and it just turned out to be her shirt hanging on the back of a chair.
Yeah.
But I've never seen him do that.
No, he commits in a way that I think Stein doesn't.
Yeah. Well, Stein started out as a joke writer, right? He wrote like humor books for
Mhm.
kids. And so I feel like with Stein, there's always that fake out, that straining for a punchline kind of quality, the desire to make things harmless and low stakes to keep them funny and light.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't feel bad making fun of Stein because, after all, he is an author who was played by Jack Black in a movie.
And I also have to say, he's a tremendous, I've met him once or twice, and he's a tremendously nice person. And, he's rich as hell. So I think you can make fun of him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think
He's
he'll
earned it.
sleep fine tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to be lying awake like the PikeCast was making fun of me.
Right. He'll fall asleep on his dollar bills and be fine. Like, it's okay.
Let's move into the Midnight Club, which is where we break down our characters, starting with Sherry Ann Cooper. And as we've noted in the past, Ann was Pike's sister's middle name and is Pike's sister's middle name. And it often shows up in the books. And I loved Sherry completely. But I want other opinions.
I mean, completely is a strong word for me. But I did like her.
Yeah. I agree with Becca. She didn't stand out to me as, you guys know that I really like my sassy heroines, and she was not quite as sassy as I would have liked, but she was clever, she was smart, she caught up to things, and she was very persistent, and I like that about a girl. So I'm here for Sherry, but I do not I won't say completely loved her. I'll say that.
Let me give you a moment or two of sass here. Her saying she always feels naked without her clothes on.
God. What? You call that sass?
It's a joke.
That's, I don't know. We have different.
Wait, that was a joke.
Sass. Wait,
I thought she meant it.
It was definitely a joke.
Becca just took it literally. She's like, "Oh yeah, same, dude. Come on."
No, I thought it was just like a really stupid line. Like, honestly, I had that under my bad writing. So.
And, to be fair, she just went through a traumatic ordeal, and her boyfriend's cheating on her, and like a lot of things going on at once for a teenage girl. So it's fine. Maybe she doesn't have a lot of like brain for sass at the time, and I respect that.
True.
So yeah, I'm here. She's fine. Whatever. I like
All
her.
right. Okay.
Well, I also want to say, the weirdest thing to me about Sherry is that, and it's a trait shared by Jean Rodriguez in Remember Me Too, is that for some reason her hair eats hairbrushes. Every time she brushes her hair, it breaks the brush, and I'm like, what the hell does this girl look like?
Well, and as a girl with a Ferrari in the garage,
yeah,
I mean, if her hair breaks hairbrushes like that, you'd think they'd have a stock of them.
Yeah, exactly. But every time she has to run to the store, it's a weird character detail.
It is.
I literally imagined a head full of hair eating a brush just now. I just have to let that be known.
It's like big teeth.
Yeah. Just chomp chomp.
Little mimic. It's like, oh, surprise.
Right.
Well, I feel like, I mean, first she admits, let me start making one point clear. I was pretty superficial, which I love. I love
I'm with you.
I can't say what it was without giving the impression I was spoiled rotten. It cost a fortune. It was fast. It was foreign. It was a Ferrari.
There's multiple points in the book where, like, Sherry's like, I won't tell you this and I won't tell you that. Like, I'm short, but I won't tell you how short. And I found that really weird, to be honest. Like, she really didn't want to tell us anything. But then she did it anyway. So.
She's so secretive.
Yeah. But she's also an open book.
Can I ask a question? What day is her birthday in relation to the day the book happens? Is it how far in advance?
Wasn't it a week before?
Okay. Yeah, because I was worried because I was like, maybe she's never driven her Ferrari before she dies because Dickhead Dan, I think, drives it in the book, on the way to the party.
And he gets so disappointed when he arrives and can't drive it.
Yeah, exactly. But also the other thing is I'm okay with Sherry. You know who I'm not okay with? Her busted brother Jim. Jim is the worst. He's broken for starters. He's diabetic, colorblind, and he sleepwalks. He is basically premature ejaculating in his pants over whenever Amanda says hi to him. He is the worst character ever.
And he works the night shift as the son of a really rich family. He's working the shit shift.
Yeah. He's terrible.
I think he came off to me as being written younger than I think he was supposed to be.
Because he's 19 going on 20.
Yeah. He's supposed to be her older brother, right? And he seems like 13 years old. A lot of the stuff that he does, he's like, oh, I have a crush on your friend. And then it's like, oh, this is his girlfriend. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Hold on. I think that's right.
I would agree with that. Yeah. He does feel like maybe they changed the ages.
Yeah, and from the previous book that we had read where there was a younger sister who we were like, she seems too old. This was a very jarring switch for me. And I wish he had been and I get a lot of the stuff wouldn't have worked or would have been a lot more inappropriate if he had been younger. But I don't know. His personality.
We're going with incest. Really, how inappropriate is it going to get?
I mean, I don't. If he was a child and his incestuous loving sister was an adult, I feel like that gets a little bit further.
Oh, yeah.
Just a bit.
I thought he was young.
Although
the entire time that I read the book,
I thought he was. What?
Yeah, and it would have been more twisted if he was younger.
Yeah.
But I also, it's funny. Even though this book revolves around incest, it didn't have a huge impact on me because the family relationship is so complicated when they explain it. I'm like, wait, so she's related to her, and then they switch. I was like, so every time they brought up incest, I was like, oh, right. Because it's like having to explain that someone's your second cousin twice removed. I was like, oh,
yeah, it feels like there's one too many sets of parents for this switcheroo.
I was confused on that. I was like, wait, but where are the rich parents, and how do they just not care? And then at the end, they're just like, they were so happy to actually have a daughter again that they paid for all her legal fees to kill the daughter you raised.
That really bothered me too.
Me too.
Killed the daughter they raised, and tried to murder Jim.
Yes, and their son.
I mean, they hate Jim too.
Yeah,
bizarre, just weird choice.
They're on my side. They're like, kill this boy.
Oh, poor Jimmy. He's just sitting there sickly and he's like, oh, come on, guys.
He just leaves his computer on all night and it's just sucking down energy. That shit ain't free.
He was the most vocal about Sherry not having killed herself, though, I will say. And maybe if not for that, they might not have looked super hard into it.
Well, they didn't look super hard into it.
They didn't.
She has to do it herself.
The drunk guy tried.
With the help of Garrett.
Good old Garrett.
Well, let's talk about Amanda Parrish, our switcheroo. She is, I feel like she's another in Pike's tradition of kind of bland characters that become important. It's like almost he's begging us not to pay any attention to her.
I thought she was I don't know. I felt okay. So I read this when I was younger, but even then I thought she was secretive and hiding something because she was so quiet and always just sitting there watching things with her big eyes. And that always that's unnerving. I don't want an owl over there watching me eat cake. It's creepy. And so I was not into that. And so that immediately for me was just ooh, red flag. She's small and very pretty. And in Christopher Pike books, that's never a good thing. And then also she's eating cake and big eyes. It's just something's not right about this girl.
I mean, she was suspicious.
It's also
the moment with the insulin.
When we first meet her fucking around with Jim's syringes.
Yeah, in the bathroom.
I was
looking for
like, that
Clorox or
instantly.
something.
Right.
Yeah, like instantly you're suspecting her for the rest of the
Red
book
flag.
of something.
She doesn't even get called out too. Like Sherry doesn't even get suspicious, which that's another thing that I'm just like, why aren't you smart enough to know that that's weird, girl? Like, what's going on here? Like, you walk in on somebody playing with your brother's medicine and
Right.
syringes, and you're like, let's make a joke out of this.
Oh,
Surely you don't know what you're looking at, lady.
Right. She's just checking it out. It's normal.
But they also have this weird thing where everyone seems to be really ashamed of Jim having diabetes, and it's like
Yeah.
a secret. Like, I had a friend who had diabetes in high school, and like the first thing his mom did was show us the emergency cake icing, like the tube of cake icing in the fridge, and be like, you know, this is what you squirt up his ass if he goes into like a diabetic coma. Which
As
was a
many
little
parents
weird.
do, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
not expecting that.
Yeah,
It went
it
in a
was like,
different direction.
Yeah. I was like, oh, he'll just eat the frosting.
I was like,
in a coma. If
emergency.
he's fainted, he's not going to swallow it. And they didn't want us messing around with syringes because we were all pretty young, get an air bubble in there. So it was like right up the pooper
Wait,
with
so
the cake icing.
They expected you to do that?
Well, it's
But what
in
if they weren't
case.
home?
It's
Oh,
not
God.
like it's Grady's responsibility.
I mean, I guess you gotta.
Because like I would not be friends with this person anymore. Like immediately, that is the first and last time I would ever go to their house.
Like,
Goodbye.
how awkward would it be afterwards? Like,
Yeah.
You see them in school the next day. You're like, hey, remember that icing I shoved up your ass?
It's like, I don't think we can play together anymore.
well, I mean, I do
Well, it would be-
understand though, because you do gotta save a friend if your friend is like knocked out. You know,
You saved their life.
right?
Yeah.
So it's respectful.
Well, also, in retrospect, I wonder if she was just like, oh, I've got all these little boys coming over here, and I really don't want anyone to eat the cake icing. I've got
This is the butt icing, everybody. Don't
Yeah.
even.
God. Save it for special occasions. Emergency
Emergency
only.
butt icing.
The weirdest thing was that it was vanilla icing. And so it was like she had very consciously not picked chocolate.
I would have picked chocolate on
Yeah,
purpose.
I
though.
would
That
have too.
should have been what you do because it's the butt icing.
But that would just
Yeah.
be mean, kind of, to be honest.
You're saving a
Yeah.
life, Becca. It's not mean.
I know,
It's
but
not a good
like-
situation
like,
all around.
Why would your mother want to embarrass you though? Like with chocolate?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
Thank
like
you.
I think there was some parental kindness there.
Right. He's
you
already gonna be
imagine?
upset because it's going up his ass. Like,
Later on
Well,
in life, you're just
exactly.
like, you're having like this talk around a campfire with your friends and you're just like sharing stories and you're just like, oh yeah, have you ever saved a life? And you're just like, yeah, this one time with icing when I was a child. Can you imagine launching into that fucking story?
Yeah.
Everybody would not want to hang out with you anymore.
Well, it also led me to believe that, like, you know, that was a part of every first aid kit. So you'd be like on an airplane and someone would be like, oh my God, this guy's in a diabetic coma. Is there a doctor on the plane? And the doctor would be like, everyone, take your brownie off your airplane meal.
oh my god.
Mash it up.
I truly
Make
hope
make
that-
a makeshift piping bag.
Wait, I truly hope
Yeah.
your friend never had to have this happen because I feel bad for him.
Never did.
Okay,
Never
good,
did.
good,
And,
good.
yeah.
Good.
And I've never met anyone else who is diabetic where this was a part of their like emergency crash kit.
God.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that there was so much shame and stuff in this book about the diabetes because this is one of the first Pike books that I read, and I also read like Babysitter's Club when I was a kid. So one of the girls in Babysitter's Club, Stacy, she's diabetic, and it's like super secretive, and she doesn't tell the other girls for like
Really?
a long time. Yeah, and there's like a whole book about that.
Really?
And so when I was a kid, I was like, whoa, like if you have diabetes, you have to be like very quiet about it. You can't talk
That's
to
so
it. Like
sad.
it's weird. I know. And I didn't know, but it was just all the books I was reading that it was mentioned and was like
right.
super secret.
I wonder
And
why
that's
that
the
was.
exact
weird.
opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the exact opposite of reality because I felt like, and maybe I just went to a weird school as we're learning, but I felt like everyone who had a serious medical condition, like it was like a mark of pride.
Mm.
Like, you know, like I have diabetes, I'm colorblind, like anything that made you different in a way that
Right.
wasn't your
Yeah,
fault
made
or
you
gross.
interesting, sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting, let's talk about Daniel Hurd.
Dickhead Daniel.
Cool.
Yeah, he's just about every miscellaneous, apathetic, hunky Pike boyfriend who immediately starts making out with other people and getting naked in jacuzzis, which is now a thing.
Mm.
He's gross.
So Daniel liked things, hot cars, social events, pretty people, the usual. Since the universe was composed primarily of things, I had never seen it as a fault.
That's so
Well, she has a Ferrari, so yeah.
Yeah, she does have a Ferrari.
Right. Daniel also has a dashing body and great lines like a race car.
Yeah, yes. Except Daniel wasn't red, he was tan. He hugged the road when he moved. He had legs, he had hips, he had independent rear suspension.
Get out. That is one of my favorite descriptions.
Oh my God, it's
books.
brilliant, and it's so much better than she had hair, she had skin.
It's not that much better.
It's so much better.
The legs and the hips really gave me a flashback to the skin and the hair.
It really,
I feel one works and one doesn't.
I liked them both. I'm gonna be honest with you. They both work for me.
One of the things I really thought was interesting about the book is, and I hate to say this is an example of Pike's craftsmanship, but I'm going to. So this is an example of Pike's craftsmanship, is that the story's being told retroactively. Yeah. And so it gives Sherry a perspective on stuff, that she didn't seem to have in life, because in reality, she and Daniel are horrible. I mean, they're both very shallow, awful people, and they're sort of yoked together in this like Jean-Paul Sartre's kind of like no exit hell match. Yes. And it takes dying for her to realize how awful Daniel is. And so I feel like that sort of attitude of how awful he is permeates the book. Whereas in reality, they'd probably wind up married, or, she'd be married to someone Daniel liked, and just sort of like, popping pills and drinking a lot of vodka at 1 p.m. at 45 years old, and like, in her bedroom all alone because she's married to this monster.
Yeah, her education from death is really actually impressively notable. Like, we see who she is before death and we see who she is after death, and it's dramatically wiser, and I think that's really an interesting character thing.
I agree.
Anyone have anything about Dan other than he's just the worst? He's not the worst.
It.
There are other the worsts.
He's the worst in this book for me, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he's worse than Amanda. Like, Amanda at least has, like, reasons.
That's true.
Daniel's just awful.
Yeah, he's selfish. She's not well, but he's actually like just selfish and a liar and gross, manipulative.
Well, when he's trying to tell Lieutenant Garrett that they were going to break up and that Sherry knew about it. Yeah,
she was a good kid. I will slit your throat, you little. I was so mad when I read that part. It made me so angry. And Sherry, bless her, she's so kind about it too. She gets a little bit annoyed and like she comments on it, but I would have been going into ghost rage mode. The lights would have been flickering. I would have been so furious.
Throw a poltergeist down.
Yeah. Books would have come off the shelves.
Let's move on to Joanne Fulton, one of the many people involved in this family thing, because she's a half-sister, right, of Sherry?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Way too many characters in
because
this book.
They share the father. Yes.
Because there was a little shebang between Mrs. Parrish and Mr. Fulton.
shebang.
I thought Mrs. Parrish was like going to be this sweet old lady, and then I found that out, and I was like, oh,
she got her shebang on.
She did.
Yeah.
Well, and she has a very like middle-aged, like charwoman vibe to her, Mrs. Parrish. Like she seems very beaten down by life. So I imagine her sex with their dad a little like when we found out that Arnold Schwarzenegger was like sleeping with his like housekeeper, like every day. It's kind of like this doesn't match up. Like I'm kind of intrigued for why he found her vibe sexy. Like it's probably sheer exploitation. I don't know.
Well, and Sherry really like her description of Mother Mary Parrish is unlike her daughter's hair. Her hair was not one of her finer features. It was terribly thin. Her scalp showed a little, particularly on the top whenever she bent over, and she was only 50. To be quite frank, she wasn't what anyone would have called a handsome lady. She did, however, have a
Yeah.
gentle, lovely smile.
Rude.
I mean, that's a rough paragraph right there, especially for someone we find out is your mother later.
It's like a good character. That's somebody we like in the book too, and it's just like, dang,
Yeah.
you couldn't have been a little bit more charitable.
And that's
She had a
somebody
good
Sherry
smile.
likes, too.
Yeah.
Well, also Sherry like weirdly like does her chores with her, Mrs.
Mhm.
Parrish. Like later talks about like she'd spend days cleaning the house with her. It's
Right.
very weird, their relationship. I mean, I find it charming, but hard to understand.
Indeed. So Joanne, we get a very overt foreshadowing here that I didn't realize, because like this one, the twist came out of nowhere for me. It was like, oh, okay, I thought Amanda was the killer, but I didn't know that was why. But here, Joanne's description, we had the same petite builds, the same kind of mouths that laughed at the same kind of jokes.
I liked her. She was all
I
like,
like Joanne too.
she was into witchy weird shit. I was like, yeah, I like that stuff. That's good.
Yeah, I was really vibing with the whole thing with the
Like when
the
when they talk about when Sherry was sick and Joanne willed vitamin C into her.
That is so cute.
Oh yeah.
What a good
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah, I like Joanne. She was Grady's right. There are way too many characters in this book, and we probably could have cut at least one set of parents and 2 to 3 other characters and been fine. But
Yeah, well,
no,
I mean,
go
think
ahead.
of how much more interesting the book would be if Joanne was Amanda instead of Amanda being Amanda.
Yeah, and that's where that would make more sense.
Yeah, but it would also be someone she actually likes, like
Mhm.
she's best friends with.
Right. That betrayal would have been
And
like
as we
10
learn
times better.
As we learn in Pike books, friendship means nothing.
Nothing. Speaking of friends, Beth Palmoni, whose nickname was Big Beth
Oh,
because
Because of her
Beth had
boobs.
big breasts.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest.
And is one of, I love this line, the latest in a seemingly endless string of bitches who are trying to steal my boyfriend away.
I have to say, I found her relatable to me during just one part. Not the stealing the boyfriend part, of course, but
Okay.
the part that, like, she's like, Beth is too nice and that's why she doesn't like her or whatever. And, like, I feel like back when I was in high school and I was too nice, like, I was constantly complimenting people. And, like, people were annoyed by that. They didn't like me either because I was too nice. So, that was relatable. Excluding the banging the boyfriend thing or wanting to. Shebang.
Shebang. I
Yes.
thought she was interesting because her character is like he writes her very vapid and superficial, and then later on you realize that she's intentionally coming off that way to get something. So she's actually quite smart but manipulative also. And then toward the very end, it's like she has this like little realization when she's with the guy and she's like, what the fuck am I doing? Like this is bad. And then she just gets up, and in my like headcanon, I imagine that Beth goes on to like live an amazing life and she becomes like a fucking lawyer or something like super badass and just like owns everything. Like she doesn't need no man and she's just like
Yes.
super,
I
doing
love
her
that
own thing with her
bitch.
big boobs, going into rooms boob first, like and owning them. Like I really love that.
I love Beth now, especially because of that
Beth
little.
also
thing.
gets this wild paragraph description. It is my belief that she had cultured her airhead quality to pacify her subconscious anxieties about her looks. Guys often say there's nothing sexier than a girl with brains, but just watch them drool over Playboy's Miss September, whose turn-ons are sincere guys and windy nights, and whose turn-offs are rude people and dogs that bite. I mean, it's no wonder that a girl like Beth, with breasts out to the moon, would develop the idea, while growing up in a society as superficial as ours, that if she just smiled a lot and didn't demand regular cerebral stimulation, guys would be more likely to ask her out.
I don't like rude people either, so
But would you put it on, I mean, you might put it on one of your major dislikes
yeah, probably.
in your
dude.
centerfold portrait there.
Don't be rude. Hear my
Right.
boobs. Like that seems like I feel like that's what I would do with my centerfold hat. Were I given the opportunity at some point?
Don't be
I
rude,
was- I
here
s-
are my boobs.
I spent a lot of time after I read that paragraph, like wondering how a windy night is a turn on.
Yeah, right.
Like, cold nights, rainy night, windy nights. It's
Windy
weird.
night.
I just imagine these people hearing the wind and like getting uncontrollably horny. It's weird.
Something about the howling wind, it just does it
Yeah.
for them. We don't kink shame here. They can have that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we support all appropriate kinks, and
Yeah.
inappropriate kinks are incest. And
Yeah, that's they.
Like they can't have fans in their house because they wouldn't be able to
because,
sleep.
yeah, just becomes a puddle on the floor.
Oh god.
Gross.
Okay, here's probably the most nobody character in the book. Jeff Nichols.
Oh my god, I forgot. Yes, the brother.
Yeah. I mean, does he have any value in the book except for being Peter's brother?
I wish. Can I tell you guys my dream?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
I wish that Jeff would have teamed up with Amanda. Like, I'm rewriting this book right now in my head.
Okay.
To kill Sherry, because I feel like that would have made him a better character. It has nothing to do with incest in my head, okay? It just has to do with we wanted to kill Sherry.
Okay.
Like, why didn't they do that? Because I feel like Jeff could have been another good, like, bad guy, because he didn't really like Sherry anyway.
Right.
Like, he could have been getting revenge for Peter. But no, we got incest instead.
I feel like Jeff seemed like, I don't know, he was like the Luke Perry of like 90210, who seemed like he was way older than everybody else, but was still at the same parties
Yeah,
with them. And
right.
was like in the backyard, like angrily smoking. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? It's so weird.
The guy that hangs out with us.
And he's Beth's boyfriend, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until
Oh,
Beth wanted
shit.
some shebang with Daniel.
Yeah, because Joanne was into Jeff.
Right. Yeah.
Jeff was dating Beth.
That was a
Incestuous
too
little
Dr.
group there.
Seuss for me.
And did Peter have a love interest pre-death?
Sherry.
I mean, it's implied Peter was interested in Sherry, and Sherry was interested in Peter, but they weren't talking
Yeah,
about it.
they were just little shy
Okay.
guys.
Well, let's move on to Peter. And before we really discuss him as a character, I want to talk about Peter's short story, Anne's Answer. It's about a
Yes.
girl our age who buys a VCR and then discovers it can tape tomorrow's TV programs today. She starts out taping the local news, spotting all the tragedies that are about to happen, and then she goes out to try to prevent them. 4 years before that book.
I love it.
Oh, really? This is that? I didn't realize this was so far ahead of
Yeah.
the enemy within.
Eternal Enemy.
Eternal Enemy.
Eternal enemy. Thank you. Yeah.
I love when they put books within the books. It's my
Mhm.
favorite.
And I'm
Man,
like,
this
yeah,
is,
I know this
is
one.
not a reference. Like the other one was the reference to Give Me a Kiss. Like specifically, this is about the book Give Me a Kiss. This is he's floating the balloon of a story that later he will come back around and harvest. I love it.
Well, one of the big mistakes I made with this book is reading Remember Me 2 right afterwards.
Okay.
Because Remember Me 2 is horrible. I mean, it is a
Oh.
horrible book on every level. And it made me retroactively dislike Remember Me 1. But one of the things they do a lot in it is there's a lot of Pike putting himself in, like there's a whole thing with Sherry, Jean Rodriguez, who like Sherry inhabits, her soul inhabits her, like being having a fantasy where she's a New York Times best-selling YA author who writes horror stories that are like about real life. And I think they throw in a few Pike plot details, and there's a lot of really specific talk about royalties and contracts that you don't think an 18-year-old would be aware of.
Uh-huh.
So like that retroactive. So that's an interesting thing in this, where it's like a lot of Pike is in this, like including this thing about the eternal enemy.
Yeah. Well, have you read Master of Murder?
No.
So we just read that one 2 episodes ago, and that one has a high schooler who is moonlighting as a best-selling author of YA horror high school fiction. And I feel like if you want to understand Christopher Pike, that book is the closest thing to a Rosetta Stone that we have.
Yeah, I just wrote that down. I got to read it.
Give it I mean, the character is awful. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Pike would want to be compared directly to him. I just think we understand Pike a little bit more from it. Let's move on to Lieutenant Garrett.
Love him.
I do too, which is another in a line of fat cops that we're supposed to initially dislike because of their slovenly attitude and drinking, who become, good guy heroes.
Yeah. There's also in Monster, the cop sort of starts out as a jerk and winds up being like the one person who really gets, what's her name, who turns into an alien bat person.
Yes. Well, and Give Me a Kiss had the cop that saved them at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Garrett has one of my favorite lines in the whole book. "You do have the right to remain silent," Garrett agreed. Daniel nodded self-righteously. "I know my rights. But then that's only if you've been arrested. I'll have to arrest you if you want to remain silent." I like that.
Yeah, my favorite Garrett line is when the guy offers him a beer and he's like, "It's warm," and Garrett's like, "Good, I'm on duty."
I know. I love that.
I can only drink beer I hate, I guess, is his duty philosophy.
Oh, but
Also creepy that he spies on his drug addict daughter. Like that's believable, but a creepy thing. There's a lot of men spying on women at vulnerable moments in this book.
in Pike in general, in fact.
Yeah.
But I would argue that like with the exception of some characters that could be removed, I feel like Garrett's daughter is one extra thing that we absolutely didn't need in this book.
True.
Yeah.
However,
And especially having her be the wrap up.
I liked the wrap
yes, that's what I was
up.
gonna
Yeah?
say. However,
It's
without
so
her,
fun.
yeah,
Okay.
we would have not have
Okay.
had that scene. Okay. And I
That scene
loved
was
that
so
scene.
fun. Little ghosty demon and angel,
Oh my God,
like
that was so
teasing
cute.
this drug girl so she can get better. I love it.
Maybe it's just that Peter's incessant
Terrible
rhyming
Okay,
infuriated me.
I vibe.
Like he's
Me
like
too.
17 something. I forgave him for sounding like an idiot because the girl's on drugs. She doesn't know good literature or spoken like verse. You know, she's not over here like, you could have done better with that line, friend. Like she's
Her
just like,
judging the
oh
whole
my
time.
God. Yeah, like and maybe I don't know. I thought it was cute.
I liked it. I really did too, Cassie.
I'm glad.
Well, I could have actually taken a whole book of Sherry and Peter just trying, like, traveling around as shape-changing ghosts,
Oh,
trying to
that's so
scare people
cute.
straight. I'd
Yes.
totally go for that.
And
I
you know
would
what?
love
Now, Grady, that you've mentioned Remember Me 2 is bad, I'm so disappointed because I thought that was what the sequel was going to be, was her and
No,
Peter.
although they do have a great scene like this one in it where, like, Sherry's like, I wanna go to prom with Peter. And so they agree to erase their own memories as ghosts and then make a fantasy together where they go to prom, and like then they get to the hotel afterwards to like bang, and Peter's like bored of the fantasy at this point, and so he like turns into a monster and bursts out of his own chest
Oh
and
my
like
God.
showers her with blood.
I love
And she's
Holy
still
shit!
she thinks she's forgotten that like this is a fantasy, and she like totally freaks out. And then he's all like, "Oh God, this sucks." And she's like, "You're such an asshole." And they have this big fight, and he's like still a monster. It's really adorable.
This is my new favorite thing.
Oh
I
my
know,
God,
so excited.
that doesn't even sound remotely real, Grady, but that's how I know that it is.
I love
I was gonna
it.
say I don't remember me being this or two being like so bad because I was like I remember there being some shit about monsters and stuff that I liked in this book, and I think that might have been it.
Wow.
I cannot wait to read it now.
I'm not going to say anything about it for you guys, but the word problematic doesn't even begin
Yeah.
to describe Remember Me Too.
That's fair. That's
Okay. I
We've
mean,
encountered
it would
some of that
not be
with
our
these books.
first where the
Yeah.
word problematic was the key theme of the book. Well, speaking of Remember Me, let's move on to our section, Remember Me, named for this book, where we talk about the plot. Okay, so clearly I love this book more than anyone else on this panel, from what I've gathered so far.
No, I love it.
I feel like this is the most distilled Pike has ever been. It's like all his wacky ideas and all his weird leanings, they sort of come together in their best forms here. And like the narration starting in the middle, the even his writing feels way advanced for 1989. Because when we've read earlier Pikes, it's been like, oh, okay, you're not great here. But I Oh man, I thought this was great, personally. And I've stopped the conversation. So
I just didn't know how to follow that up. It was
He was
Yeah.
very
it was
passionate
such a
about that. I was like,
declaration.
oh.
So okay, I have something to say, and this just goes back to what Grady said earlier about hating the shadows. Because look, here's where I go on a small little rant. And anybody, I don't know if you guys have ever played the Persona games. Have you? Any of you played them?
The fifth
No.
one.
Okay, these games are fun. Oh, and basically you're like these little like anime kids, and you like run around fighting shadows in this shadow world and stuff. And you have to fight like your inner self, your persona, and battle your inner self. So whatever the shadowy thoughts and feelings that you are trying to hide from yourself are, you battle that, and then you can take control of your persona and use it in battle to fight things and monsters. So like the whole time I was reading this, I was like, this is such a good companion to Persona. And like, if I'm ever going to do a blog post where I'm like, play this game and read this book, I'm fucking doing this because this is so good. And I'm sorry, Grady, that you hated the shadows because I loved them and I was so here for it and I loved it and I was so excited about the shadows.
Well, I feel like part of the shadow unusualness is how like they went out of their way to missell us on what the shadow was when Peter didn't even know what the shadow was.
Yeah, isn't it? It's weird. Peter's like all like afterlife brainiac, but he's deeply wrong and confused
Yeah.
and stupid about the shadows.
Like his entire afterlife experience basically is I'm making up what I think is happening. And I'm going to tell it to you as fact.
So with his too, I think it's interesting though, because he says he helps other people and does other stuff. And they don't mention if any of the other people that he does help are suicide victims. So like,
That's
I don't know
true.
if he's the only one. So in his mind, maybe he does think like, I'm different from these people. I can't, like my shadow self is going to be like worse. And this is going to be bad because I killed myself and I chose this. Whereas all these other people were killed from other circumstances. So I feel like that was a bit believable for me, for him acting that way and thinking like, I know everything. Cause to him in his brain, he's like, yeah, I'm the only different factor here.
Well, I did think, yeah, and I did think it was very realistic and kind of endearing to me that Peter's sort of stupidity about the afterlife, because I thought it was very believable that a teenage boy of all people would be like, oh yeah, I've got all this stuff worked out.
Yeah.
I totally,
Yes.
and
Yes.
doesn't really know Jack.
Absolutely.
I really like this, the first description of the shadow. Its shape and color were difficult to comprehend. It seemed a dark cloud caught in a state of flux between a solid and a vapor. It also appeared to be part of the surroundings, a dam of some sort, on the plasma that continued to flow through my new world. Or perhaps, I thought, it was a scar on the world.
Yeah.
It's just, it's almost cosmic horror in there. Like, and
it's very Lovecrafty. I can't even describe it. It was, yeah.
And I feel like we get that in the crawling hatred in the den, in the daughter of Garrett. Does she have a name? She doesn't have a name, does she?
I don't remember. I don't think
I don't think she has a name. But in her area where the crawling hate was like thorns and I mean, it really was visceral and in an upsetting way almost, and I really enjoyed that.
One thing I didn't enjoy was the questioning of the kids by that sort of like weird Columbo scene where Garrett has that really, really long questioning of these kids about where they were every second. And I don't know if you guys can hear this. That's a $20 bill I'm snapping that I will give to anyone who can map out where those fucking kids are at any point in that evening. It was the most confusing thing I'd ever read.
It was a lot, yeah. The constant going in and out of the bathroom, and this bathroom was in use, so I went to the other bathroom.
And it's like the characters, it's not one bathroom, there's two bathrooms and one has two doors. It's like, this is the book where like one is none and two is one for Pike.
Also, what sense does it make for a sliding glass door to automatically lock when closed?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
I mean, if you go out on your balcony and close the door and it automatically locks, what the fuck is that about?
And they had 3 balcony doors.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're
I
right. I
also was
forgot it
trying
was
to
3.
figure out just
Yeah.
this idea of this apartment. I know there's a
Well,
sketch in the book.
Yeah,
though.
I was going to say there's a diagram, which is amazing to me because it's like Christopher Pike knew how convoluted he was making this. And he was like, okay, I'm going to give them a diagram. But that's not even my favorite part. My favorite part is that even after all of that, at the fucking end, she's just like, I climbed over the roof and came back in through the front door. And it's like, what
Yeah,
the hell
I
do you
know.
mean?
I still
well, and
don't get it.
the best thing about the diagram, it is literally an apartment that is impossible to exist. Let me describe this apartment to you. The only way into the kitchen or the dining room is from the balcony. Beth's bedroom is down a hall, but the parents' bedroom walls seem to end before the hall ends and then lets out onto a balcony that's part of the hall. The living room is literally 5 times bigger than the bedrooms.
Yeah.
And the kitchen is the same size as the dining room. The bathroom is both bathrooms are as narrow as the closet. Like this is the worst layout for an apartment.
I love that when he draws it too, she's like, he could have been an architect. It was so good.
Yeah,
and like,
right.
so
Yeah.
to scale.
And who has anyone? So I love I love when writers make up things that kids do, like games that kids play.
Yeah.
Like nothing is better than when a writer's like, I'm going to describe this video game kids are playing. Like what's the one about the angels? The Christopher Pike book about the angels from the future that come out. The kid's the video game designer, and every time Christopher Pike like describes the games that kid designs, I'm like, that's a terrible game. Or John Coyne wrote a book called Hobgoblin. It's like a high school book, but there's a lot of like D&D sort of satanic panic stuff, and it actually turns into a fun slasher by the end. But the game they play called Hobgoblin is like the worst role playing game. Like maybe one lonely, like semi stupid child might play that game, but no one else. So I love that their party game is like you lie down with your head on a magnet and we ask you questions and then your leg grows longer. What? This is not a real party game, is it? Please tell me it's not.
It is the weirdest witchcraft ever.
But before all that, they like did the thing where like the game was to pretend that they were at a funeral, which I thought was pretty fucked up.
Oh yeah, that was weird too.
And then to put Sherry in a trance, they're like, now everyone must imagine Sherry's dead. I'm like, these parties suck.
Yeah, that is not a fun party game.
And there's actually a terrible party in the big party where someone goes off a balcony and Remember Me Too is also a terrible party. Like terrible parties seem to be a Pike thing.
Well, Monster has the worst party.
Oh, yeah. And also Slumber Party.
Yes,
it has the terrible party where the girl who's scared of fire, they like push her really close to the fire.
I know.
Just kidding.
I love that we've talked about like how those of us who have read this as kids, we were the types of kids who didn't go to parties. Mm-hmm. And so reading these, I thought when I grew up, there was going to be a lot more tragedy and a lot more like weird witchy shit happening at parties. None of the parties I ever went to in my like 20s or anything were ever like that. I was so disappointed. There was never a Ouija board brought out unless I brought it myself, which people frown at you when you do that. They're like, what are you doing, bitch? Get out of here. And then that's not fun for anybody, especially me.
Wow. I'm really glad I didn't read these books as a teenager because it does set a high bar for parties.
It created really unrealistic standards of everything.
Cocaine, sex, parties.
Yeah. It was hard to, grow up after reading these.
I spent so much of my high school existence like sitting in my car or in some remote place trying desperately to make a drug deal happen that never came through.
You're just making eye contact at people walking by your car and you're like, hey, you.
And it's like in Pike books, these kids like they open the front door and someone like t-shirt cannons a bunch of cocaine into their faces. Yeah. I'm jealous.
Here's a whole platter of cocaine cookies.
Yeah.
Sugar Sisters for the win.
I would love to invite Alexis to my parties if I had them.
I know.
And a lot of murder. Like you have to try really hard not to get murdered in a Pike book.
A lot of teenagers with lifetimes worth of hatred in them, just going crazy and killing, and a lot of weird revenge that involves killing or making someone think they killed or making someone think they there's
Well, actually, I got to say, one of the things that I appreciate so much in Pike books, and I didn't appreciate in Remember Me, is one of the most believable things to me is these characters who have stored up, like you were just saying, 700 years of hatred for another character in their brief 3 years of knowing each other in
Mhm.
high school and have come up with this elaborate murder plot. Like it involves scuba tanks and like
Yes.
swimming under a boat and climbing equipment. That to me is so believable that high schoolers would have that much hate and come up with such elaborate schemes, which makes Amanda's scheme like seem almost improvised and very sort of like half-hearted in this book.
And very panic about needles, I think, too.
Yeah, yeah.
We-
I just question the depths of Amanda's hatred.
Well, I don't understand a lot of, like Sherry would not, I mean, Amanda could have gotten away with this too if she hadn't immediately tried to fuck her brother.
Those meddling kids.
Yeah, and there were meddling kids,
He had
meddling
the-
ghosts, in
He
fact.
had the opening. I had to go with that.
Yeah, it's fair. I will say, of these books, they make me feel a little bit better about myself just as a well-rounded person because I've held grudges for 10 years and haven't killed anybody. So
Well
I
done.
think I'm on the right track, at least for
Nice.
Yeah.
now. Knock on wood.
One thing I really did enjoy in this was the discussion of how things work in the afterlife. Mainly, you're not learning to do it; you're unlearning the belief that you can't do it. About flying and walking through things, and it feels very well thought out, which is unusual for young adult fiction, and it feels very actually surprisingly consistent in how the rules of the afterlife work.
One thing that I thought was really interesting, I love the moment at the funeral, where she finds Peter because he's just sort of like,
Yeah.
he knows he needs to find her and he's drawn there. It's a little bit like you're saying, he's there. And it makes me wonder, because that's the big jaw drop moment in, I don't know if y'all saw Russian Doll, but like,
yeah.
oh, hey, this is happening to me too. And you're like, wow, man, it's like Pike anticipated like what a great reveal would be like so many years before.
And
He's a
he did that
genius.
at the end of it was his cliffhanger moment, but not
Yeah.
a jump scare moment, just a, oh, whoa, holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the eternal enemy. So stick around for the PikeCast.
Wow, friends. Where else can you get this kind of programming than the PikeCast? Nowhere, that's where. But we're trying to keep the lights on here. If you like what you're hearing and want it to keep happening, jump over to our Patreon at thepikecast.com/Patreon and throw us a few bucks to join our private Discord server. Higher tiers get books, stickers, bookmarks, and even personalized shirts. That's thepikecast.com/Patreon.
Once, Osgood and Frost were the up-and-coming stars of the burgeoning paranormal investigation TV show craze before a hoax put an end to their friendship, partnership, and television careers. Now, over a decade later, Prudence Osgood is a barely functioning alcoholic ghost hunter for hire. Her yearning for mystery and adventure is reignited when she receives a cryptic, untraceable email. She can't resist embarking on an investigation that tugs threads, winding through a sinister series of disappearances, her former partner's family, and a night 20 years ago when a semi blew a yellow light and nearly killed her. Reviewers are calling Osgood Is Gone a masterfully vulnerable and relatable 21st century horror story, and a bourbon-soaked supernatural mystery with sparkling dialogue that sticks the landing on LGBT characters, and main character Prudence Osgood, as tortured as she is clever. broken in all the best ways, and a true heroine for our times. Buy it today at Osgood As Gone as a paperback, ebook, or audiobook narrated by me, JJ Ronvier.
Welcome back to the PikeCast. Now we move into our section, The Eternal Enemy, where we talk about the antagonist of the book, which is Amanda, and we've really kind of talked about her. Is there anything else we feel the need to say about Amanda the villain?
I think it's sad. Like when I think about her too hard, because I think about the sad people a lot, and then I just get sad and overwhelmed, and I'm like, I know this poor girl, she knew, and she's like in love with this guy, and then she's like, oh, just kidding, that's your brother, you cannot be with him, and so she's just like not doing well in her brain, and I feel bad for her. She's also like not, she's bad, so that we don't like her, but I feel bad for her.
Well, we can also call her mom one of the major. No, not her mom. The sister,
the other mother,
who I love,
the nurse,
the chain smoking nurse.
Yeah, chain smoking nurse. She's the villain that started this whole thing because she just switched the babies.
Yeah,
and I don't care who's cheating on who. That is not an appropriate reaction.
Yeah,
just because she didn't want to look at it every day.
Well, another quick question. At what point does Amanda find out that she's not her mother's actual daughter?
That is a really good question.
Yeah, that's what I would like to know.
And
within the timeline of the book, or did she know before the book?
It feels like before.
I think she probably knew before when
they
started getting more distant, like when she started pulling away from Jimmy, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because they didn't know each other before that. So then Sherry introduces the two, and then so she probably starts like falling for him, and then her mom's probably like, you can't be around that boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because her mom's not giving her the messages.
Right.
That Jimmy's calling.
Yeah.
Which I thought was bullshit at first, but then I think that actually probably did happen because her mom knew.
Yeah.
Although you do have to wonder, though, like, I'm not going to give my daughter the sex messages from her brother. Like, if that's enough of a parental intervention, like maybe she should have gone a little harder to prevent the incest.
Well, maybe that's when she did go a little farther. Was like, look, he's your brother.
That's true.
Cool it. And then she's like, I'm going to kill my sister or the real daughter.
Well, also, I have to say, I don't feel too sorry for Amanda either, because Amanda almost kills a bunch of people, almost burns herself to death, does kill Sherry. And really, like, I loved it when she pushes Sherry off the balcony. Sherry lands on the top of her head and like her skull like busts open. But then her actual parents, who are like cajillionaires, are like, screw everyone else. We love you. We're hiring a lawyer. 5 years, insanity plea. Then you're going to be out and living with your brother.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Amanda's got it pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, well, she had a rough time and now she gets a little bit of happiness. We all deserve a little bit of happiness after our rough times.
It's true.
I think the person to really feel bad about there is Jimmy.
Yeah.
Who was in love with this girl who turns out to be his sister and tries to murder him.
But
and then his other sister is dead.
Right. And he also helps, like at the end, they're like, well, he won't be alone with Amanda, but he's still there for her. And I'm like, she tried putting a bubble in your veins, bro. Like, I would not.
But it was out of love. A love bubble, Becca.
I mean, I don't want a love vein bubble though, so I feel like Jimmy doesn't either.
That's fair. That's
another one of those phrases that has never been said before on a podcast.
I think I'm pretty sure I read this book around maybe like just a couple of years after the first time I read Flowers in the Attic. And I didn't, as a kid, I didn't really know like, oh, this is okay. I want to say this very carefully because I'm trying to explain that I knew that incest was wrong, but also I thought it was much more like popular in media and books and in like movies because in the books that I was reading, which I don't know why at 10 I was reading Flowers in the Attic, but I thought that was going to be all over the place. And then when I got a little bit older and I was like, wait, this isn't, brothers and sisters and cousins aren't all like doing each other left and right here. And so that was another one of those things that I was just like, I thought this was like a really solid motivation for her, but I don't think it is actually.
Well, also incest is one of those weird things that I never can relate to in a book. Because I'm like, I grew up with 3 older sisters, and I'll tell you, man, your siblings are gross.
Yeah,
like,
no, absolutely.
Like the idea of
100%.
feeling any kind of sexual or romantic passion for someone you share a house with and like watch them eat microwave pizza, I
Yeah.
cannot relate to in any way, shape, or form. So I was always kind of like, I'll just take that. I'll just take it. The author's saying it. Okay, sure.
So, sure. Yeah, I get it. Okay, whatever. Well, speaking of incest and by relation sex in general, let's move into Thirst, our section about titillation and sexuality in Pike's world. And believe it or not, I've got a bunch of quotes.
Oh, really?
I mean, several of them do revolve around Beth's big breasts.
Oh.
That's fair. They're mentioned quite a bit.
I have a couple about how fast Daniel is.
Oh, yes, hit it.
All right, thank you. Here we go. I love to think about sex. I could fantasize 6 hours a day and not get tired, even if I was repeating the same fantasy with only slight variations. I was a master of slight variations. But one could think too much. When we got naked together in bed, things did not go well. Daniel couldn't... ... Oh, this will sound crude if I say it. So I'll say instead that I shouldn't have overdone it comparing him to my Ferrari. Yeah, in a sense, he was as fast as the car. I left the room a virgin.
Oh, I love how catty that is.
Me too. I did enjoy that part.
That was a good one.
So, quick question. Sherry is a virgin when she dies.
Yes.
Yes.
Is Peter?
I don't know.
I get the feeling that he is. Because
I
even
think
when
so,
even when he ghost spies on her in the shower, he later confesses that he didn't, doesn't he?
Well, no, he said he left when she was topless.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Because they make a big, line delineation on when it would have been okay or not.
Yeah.
And Peter then says, you think sex is dirty. You have a dirty mind. To which Sherry says, I think sex is fine between two consenting living adults. What about between two dead adolescents? He asked.
Dun, dun, dun.
Pervy ghosts.
Yeah.
Speaking of incest and cousins,
Oh, God.
in Daniel's dream, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
weird,
Oh,
I hated that.
Yeah.
Marcia.
we get Marcia. She's a cousin of mine visiting from Florida. He said, did you have sex with her? He looked guilty. We took a shower together once. You took a shower with your cousin? Were you going with me at the time? He hesitated. No. I don't know what's going on there.
What is really
What?
messed up is they make diabetes seem like a bad thing, but incest is totally fine. Totally fine.
Yeah. Well, also, interestingly enough, to that thing earlier where they give the plot of the Eternal Enemy briefly in the car, like years before Pike wrote that book, you wonder if there was a book he never wrote that was going to like the story of Marcia in Florida, and she goes to wherever this depraved Southern California hellhole is, and her cousin like gets in the shower with her and all that.
Yeah. It's and
Christopher Pike just weaves out these threads he may or may not pick up on later.
Oh, and I should have read this part first because Marcia is apparently a naked blonde with Beth's chest and Sherry's face. And she is lounging on a circular waterbed.
And she has Beth's voice. Don't forget that.
So weird. Poor
So
Marcia,
weird.
honestly.
Yeah.
Because she's been completely replaced in parts by other people.
Well, no, her bottom half is still her own, apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, he does
Beth's
know
voice,
from showering with her.
Sherry's face, Beth's chest, and from the waist down,
And the
she's
rest
Marcia.
is Marcia.
Does he say from the waist down it's Marcia? Because maybe it could be like a mermaid or like you could have anything here at this point.
It is the dream
It's a
world.
Ferrari.
Yeah. It's a Ferrari. It's got excellent rear suspension.
He would be really into that.
Let's see. This is a fun little bit of repartee. He smiled and reached up to touch her long hair. You're so beautiful. She continued to hold the knife in her hand. But you can't eat me. Oh, I don't know, Jimmy said. I could try.
I love that scene.
Oh, yeah, and here's the top thing. What do you want, Sherry? I thought a moment. Kisses, 2 years worth. He grinned. For that, you'll have to take off your top.
That was a little...
Huh?
I feel like that was a cute flirtatious line, though. I liked that. That was adorable.
I like those two. Especially
Yeah.
when I stopped believing that Peter was the one that threw her off the balcony.
Oh, that would have been a good one.
Did anyone
Oh,
else think that?
no,
No.
but
How did
that would be a great red herring.
I figured that Peter was the one who inhabited Beth, and then Beth was all wonky afterward.
Oh.
And so I figured he stayed in her and shoved Sherry off the balcony. So I was completely off.
I like what
Wait,
you're
did you
planning
have like a motivation?
I just assumed it was something to do with Peter's death.
I
Oh.
assumed it
Like, she
I
blamed
assumed,
Sherry
this
or
is
something.
I feel like that could work, but he like the motive could be like, oh well, you wouldn't date me when I was alive, and it's like
Oh,
a
yeah,
shitty
that
boy
would work too,
motive,
yeah.
you know, like.
Oh my God, that's a very Whisper of Death direction, right?
It
Like,
is.
I'll make you dead and then tell you a bunch of bullshit about the afterlife and you'll like
Yeah.
fall in love with me. And
Yeah.
it's all a gaslight.
Yeah, like I felt like the shadow was actually somehow Peter.
Whoa, you
like-
imagine such a better book.
Or the shadow is not actually scary. The shadow is something trying to save her from Peter because it knew
Yeah.
that she, yeah.
Oh,
Look at
holy
us
crap.
brainstorming.
Well, it is a tradition here on the PikeCast to invent plots that were not intended that we all should write at some point. Cassie has
Man.
a whole anthology of Pike spin-offs going on.
I gotta say, right now, the top of my head looks like Sherry's. It is blown open and my brains are everywhere because this is such an amazing rewrite of the book.
Let's move to. Does anyone else have any breast mentions?
I do not.
Oh, I thought I misheard you, and I was sorry. Just ignore me.
Did you
I was,
think I
like,
said
giggling to-
breast? Best?
No, I
Breast?
yes, and then I was like, haha, you said breast, but I was like, wait,
I
no,
did
it
say
was Cooper. He did say breast.
I said it on purpose. Yes,
Yeah, never.
it was not Freudian in any way.
I don't have anything else, Coop. Back to you.
I have no more breast.
Well, let's move over to Die Softly, where we talk moralizing and problematic elements in the writing and plot. I felt like Garrett's daughter was a bit of moralization. I felt like it was part of the 80s anti-drug movement. Like she was...
And why is she a prostitute? I remember there was some primal trauma. What was it?
I don't know. Maybe I missed that too.
I don't remember her having a reason. I thought she just had like gone off the deep end or something.
I thought when Sherry has that big moment where she's reborn and sees the universe, you know, she has that huge flashback, that she sees Garrett's life and like sees something about his daughter's past. I thought.
Huh.
I should have taken notes.
I'll have to revisit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, I'm flipping through. Give me a second.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm trying to
Carry on.
I mean, in general, I didn't find much in the way of problematic elements. I mean, in general, incest is a problematic element, but it's a character element rather than an extra thing, and it's never a positive thing.
One thing I did find a little problematic, I can't find it. One thing I did find a little problematic was that I feel like when Pike wrote the first draft of this book, Mrs. Parrish had a much more, shall we say, ethnic last name. Because there was all this stuff about Amanda being dark and her dark hair, and they lived in, you know what I mean? And she's the maid, and that may be me because there's a huge like bit with like Latino characters in Remember Me Too. Yeah. And I just felt like there was some kind of racial element there. Like Sherry's hair being really like, you know, like kinky and hard to brush. And I don't know. I felt like something was there that maybe some sharp-eyed editor is like, and we're going to nope that right out of the book
maybe
because
that
it's
doesn't need to be
distasteful.
in here.
Yeah.
That could very well be. That the hair thing is interesting enough to make me lean toward that, in fact. Okay, well, if we don't have many moralizing and problematic elements, the only other real moralizing we have is lots of slut talk.
Yeah. Also, I gotta say, sorry to interrupt, I gotta say, Sherry is a bit judgmental about the cops drinking.
She is.
She's like, I don't want a drunk investigating my. And it's like, you saw him drink like half a fifth of whiskey while he was like investigating. You're like, is he a drug? He seems to do a pretty good fucking idea of unraveling this insanely complicated murder plot, and then like totally head gaming Amanda into like admitting it. And then he knows exactly what she's doing. I'm like, for a drunk that you think is stupid, he should drink more if this is how smart it makes him.
I feel like he's one of those cops that lowers people's expectations of him.
Yeah, including Sherry's. Like, I'm
yeah.
sorry, she's judgmental about drinking.
She is. I did think it was interesting that they had the juxtaposition of his alcoholism with him watching his drug addicted daughter. Like, and he's like judging her and like, oh, I wish I could save her. And like, obviously it's troubling him. At the same time, he's literally like killing himself and poisoning himself with the alcohol that he's drinking too much of. So I thought that was but he doesn't think it's a problem. Like he doesn't, there's no real even mention of that. Whereas the daughter is very clearly like needs to be saved.
Well, I think you just put your finger on something really interesting I hadn't thought of before, because he is watching her being like, oh my God, and look at that. She needs those drugs. Where does she get that from?
Yeah.
He has his 19th bottle of whiskey in 3 pages.
And it's interesting because that is how things are, like it is, like alcohol is just seen as something that's like social. You do it. And obviously, you know, people do struggle with it. Alcoholism is a disease. And you can be addicted, but even in books and movies at the time, and even now, it's not really seen the same way as like this girl
that is the
selling her body for something. Yeah, exactly. Acceptable. Yeah.
Well, and even from Pike's point of view, being a drug addict makes you a weak prostitute who can be scared by ghosts. Being an alcoholic makes you like Sherlock Holmes.
Right. And doing cocaine and selling it in cookies makes you a sugar sister.
Makes you a badass.
Exactly.
Yeah, sugar
so
sister.
It's
Where's
different.
Pike on smoking?
Not
like,
a lot
in
of
the course of
smoke.
reading his books, is he in for it or does he think hates it?
Because I think, remember in Whisper of Death, Rox was out smoking on her like lunch break, and it wasn't bad. So
he doesn't seem to have a strong opinion, but he definitely has had someone be a no good alcoholic in his life. Wouldn't be surprised if it was a parent, honestly. But I'm just inferring, and again, Pike is welcome to come on and refute any of my inferences.
I really now am appreciating this world where, like, because there's so much pikiness, you know, with the, like, you know, I'm going to be this writer and all this in this book, and especially in the sequel, where Pike's, like, alcoholic father, like, watched Pike become a drug-addicted prostitute as, like, a 19-year-old. And then Christopher Pike got scared straight by these ghosts, and that gave him a lifelong interest in spirituality, and he turned his life around and became a New York Times bestselling author.
I think that's canon now.
I like it.
Well, let's move into the season of passage where we discuss the best and worst writing. I want to start this with the description of Sherry's death because I love it. I didn't feel the blow of the impact, but I do remember rolling over and looking up. Now there were millions of stars in the sky, orange ones and green ones and blue ones. There were also red ones, big fat red ones whose numbers rapidly grew as I watched, blotting out all the others in the heavens until soon they were all that remained, part of a colossal wave of smothering hot wax. I blacked out. I died.
It was blood.
It was blood. But I love that it wasn't specifically blood in the text.
No, yeah.
The idea of the hot wax really fascinated me because of how warm the blood would have felt. Like, I was there. I was in it.
I was just clarifying for anybody else who was out there, where did she get a candle from? You know, just like anything like that. Like, I just wanted to.
Well, there was also the problem that there were multiple candles and multiple wax stains in this plot.
Exactly. There could have been confusion. There was spilled like they were just like red blood or red wax spilled on the carpet, and then she's like red wax being poured over my eyes. I didn't want somebody to think there's somebody holding a candle and, you know, just drip, drip, drip. It's blood.
I appreciate that.
One of our mini characters is the designated candle holder.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
I have one line, and it's not like super good, but it's just one I like because it's cute and sparkly. Okay. I'm the color of wind. I can dance on moonbeams and sometimes cause a star to twinkle.
Yes,
Aww.
I had that one too. I like that.
It was so cute. I like it.
It's abstract, and I like that about it.
I gotta say, one thing I really appreciate about Pike, and it's probably because I put a lot of emphasis on titles, and I really, really, I often will have like a last line that I'm sort of writing towards. In a lot of cases, I gotta say, I gotta give Pike a lot of credit. He often has killer wrap ups in his books, like even some of the ones I don't like. The first few sentences and the last few sentences, I always think are so good. And this is one where I just feel like it's one of those moments you get to the last word and it's like, click, the necklace just connects, it snaps into place, and you're like, full circle, the end, done. I hope y'all don't mind if like I indulge here, but
No,
like,
do it.
I love the end of this book. Yet I also have a selfish reason for wanting my story told. I was young when I died. I didn't have a chance to make my mark in the world. I didn't do anything unique, nothing that will change the course of history. But I wasn't a bad girl. I don't want to be forgotten. I want people to boom, boom, boom.
Remember me.
Oh,
They
man,
did the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, like that was like, I really was just like, if I had been sitting on a balcony, I would have thrown this book off of it when I was done in celebration. And you know what? It wouldn't have fallen. It probably would have flapped its little pages and flown
And
off
flown
into the
away.
sun.
Yeah.
To another
Perfection.
home, another person to change their
To
life.
another reader, exactly.
Yes.
They
Yes.
wake up, what's this book on my
It just
couch?
flutters into their bedroom.
Chapter 1.
But we have to give them a moment to get over the horrifying shock of a flying book.
Well, that's why I'm
I
hoping
would-
it's like asleep when it comes
Oh,
in their
okay, yeah.
window.
Oh yeah. So
Like
you just wake up
Peter's
and the book's
ghost.
there.
Yeah.
Becca and Cassie, do you have any, or should I
I have
read from my massive list?
I have a couple, bud. Okay.
Hit us.
So this isn't like beautifully is the word, beautifully written, but I feel like it's good advice. I've discovered that once you're dead, the only opinion that matters is your own. And I got another one similar to that. Let me do some flippers. Okay.
Did you say? I'm sorry. Did you say let me goose some flippers?
I said let me do some flippers because I was flipping my pages.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
I mean, goose to the flippers, that's what you do with a pinball machine, right?
What?
Wait, what? You goose?
You goose them?
I was taken way more seriously than I expected. Let's just move on.
Right. So,
I'm sorry, guys.
my other one is, but I lied. And those little white lies, they catch up with you eventually. Or maybe they just get away from you, like a balloon in the wind. And
that's very like Candle in the Windy, and I want them to just start playing Candle in the Wind
God, that's
song.
so cute. Right, I got one last one for you, buds. Okay, so, or I might have more, but I'll leave you with one more. So you know that I like my gore, so I could tell you how. Did you read this one already?
Yeah, I could. No, I didn't read that one.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was like, wait, now this seems familiar. Okay.
No, I read the one with the hot wax. It's
Right, okay. I could tell you how I died, how my skull cracked open and the blood gushed out, all the gory details. But gore is for the living. Fading mortals don't always close their eyes when becoming naked spirits, but they seldom watch. At least I didn't.
I remember. I loved that.
There's another really great bit in the afterlife that it weirdly captures the idea of free will and predestination better than anything I've ever heard. Say you took out a bank loan. Being a person of your word from that point on, it is predetermined you will pay it back. But how fast you pay it back is up to you. You can take 80 years or 18. So you have both destiny and free will. Life is like that, and death. And then Sherry says, but this stupid bank foreclosed on my house.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. Pike's good, like I don't know, man. It's like the speed at which he writes, he generates some shit and he generates some gems almost in equal measure, which I appreciate.
Me too. Yeah. Teenage girls are always complaining about the way they look, but now that no one is looking at me, I see something else. I should never have complained. That is an interesting dose of reality in these stories. I was never religious. Oh, I always liked Jesus, and I even went to church now and then. But I used to have more important things to think about than God, like whether I should try to have sex with my boyfriend before I graduated from high school, or whether I should wait till the 4th of July and the fireworks. I wanted it to be a special moment. I wanted my whole life to be special, but I just hardly ever thought about God. I just love how dismissive that is. It's dismissive enough that only an atheist could have written it. This one was interesting. The furniture was Victorian, old and splintered, and the forlorn statues that haunted the four corners were dismembered remnants from forgotten places. That prose is purple, man. Let's see. I had seen my brother upset before, but I had never seen him cry. I would not have thought it possible. Oh, he wasn't so tough that I couldn't imagine him breaking down. It was just that I couldn't imagine him doing it where I could see him. That was what made it all so horrible. I was here and he was there, and there was hardly anything separating us. Nothing at all, really. Only the entire span of an uncaring universe. Okay, I have one last one here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, most people can't see other people as quite as real as themselves. When I was alive, some people at school seemed to me like little more than mannequins in the store window. They were simply there for my greater shopping enjoyment. I love that.
Yeah, I like how like Sherry really doesn't let herself off the hook.
No, she really doesn't. She has an absurd amount of clarity for a Pike heroine.
Yeah, well, I think that's because she's dead.
Well, yes. The kind of clarity you can only get in death.
And actually, to be sort of shallow Sherry, the living Sherry, I wanted to ask you guys a question because this eluded me. What happens to her Ferrari?
I just hope Amanda doesn't get it.
No, do they mention anything that happens to it? Like her parents selling it or something?
No, they mention later when she visits her parents and she sees that they're packing up to like go on their trip. She doesn't see it, so she imagines it's in the garage.
Right,
but I mean, as far as she knows, by that time they could have sold it. You wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting because Remember Me 2 takes place a year later, and Jim didn't get the Ferrari. He's got a truck, and
poor guy. He works so hard.
Yeah. And so, like, you're kind of like, oh my God, what you just said. I think Amanda gets the Ferrari.
No.
Oh my God.
No.
That is so upsetting.
That is.
I'm just going to say.
They sold it.
Okay, that's a little more fair.
Wait, who got it?
That makes me believe in a fair universe.
No, I just said I hope they sold it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, honestly, though, as long as Daniel doesn't get it.
I was actually thinking they should sell it to Daniel just because he really liked the car and I wanted to be nice. But okay, Cooper.
I would rather have Daniel have it than Amanda.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
Me too.
Okay,
maybe give it to Beth, and while she's like a fancy lawyer, she's got her Ferrari now, and she's like, yes,
it,
with
Beth,
the top down, her hair blowing in the wind.
Yes.
Do the top downs go down in Ferraris?
Oh,
I don't
Beth
know.
would be great.
So.
Oh,
More likely they gave it to Joe if they gave it to a friend.
That would be nice.
Oh, that's
I'd like that. Yeah.
That would be really nice.
You know, Joe all in black, witching around in her Ferrari.
I was wondering if I can get an explanation. So, like, later when Joe has a dream and there's like an old lady, that's Joe, right? Did that really happen, like, in the future?
No, that was just her dream.
I think it was just a dream.
Okay, sorry.
She was just having a dream that she was like some kind of like witchy old lady in a creepy old cool super rad house, and then like her friend comes in and is like, "Hey, bitch," shoves her face into a crystal ball.
Look what you did.
Then,
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought that had like really
so
happened.
traumatic. No, I don't think so.
I mean, there is enough detail there that it feels like Pike trying on a story.
I would read that story.
I would too. I would love to see somebody's face inside of a crystal ball. Honestly.
I have one example of bad writing from here, and it's not terrible, but it's Pike bad. He wasn't an expert at lovemaking, but he had a warm mouth.
Ooh.
Ew.
I know. Isn't that awful?
That is just that's not enticing.
No, it's not.
Gross. Like, ew, what?
Does anyone else have any bad ones, or should I move on to Pikeisms? Okay. Here is some normal Pikeisms now. Lusting for another's paramour. That's very common. All the time I kept my eyes on Daniel and Beth, and Jo kept her eyes on Jeff and Beth, and the world kept right on turning.
Jeff and Beth is too much for me.
Yeah. It does not feel right. Like, Beth is very outgoing and Jeff is not.
Oh, I just meant the way the words
Okay, that's
sound
what
together.
I thought, but I was like,
Yeah,
wait, maybe
sorry.
it's deeper than that.
No, I was just being just as vapid and superficial as our characters.
Okay, just checking, making sure we're on the same page.
Good.
So we need to pay attention to this, because apparently naked or topless and fooling around in a jacuzzi is the new hotness for infidelity in Pike's world. So we need to watch for it, I think. And it struck me how cool Beth was playing it for someone who had only a few minutes ago been sinning in a hot tub with a guy who didn't belong to her.
Well, did they admit to that, or was Amanda lying?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it?
Oh, damn.
Yeah, because Amanda didn't like her, and she would have wanted to hurt her. So they could have just been out chilling, and then that's why they both came back. And that's also why maybe he gave her that weird look when she kept mentioning her body, like Beth's body.
Although when Garrett visits them a few days later, he like plucks a condom out of
and
their shirt pocket.
They're
So
all
I'm not
about to
saying
have
after.
sex, yeah.
Yeah, I totally think that they were after, and I'm not even denying that there was some attraction and like flirtation there, but we don't know that they were actually in the jacuzzi with her clothes off.
That is
like,
very
That's
true.
very generous of you, yeah.
Aw.
Yeah,
That's nice.
Amanda maybe is bad, so
You're giving Spam the benefit of the doubt.
I am. I just really liked Beth.
Okay, so you're giving Beth the benefit of the
Yeah, I mean, because she comes in super like, she doesn't seem like a mean, malicious person. They even stress in the beginning that she's very nice. So it just seems like a weird, out of character thing for her to be
That's true,
fooling around on her own boyfriend and on her friend, like with her friend's boyfriend. Like, it just seems
and the idea with Beth is more that people judge her in ways that she's not actually. So yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah.
And she acts that way because she knows that it will get her further than being a different way.
Right.
So, but yeah, I don't know. Just a little
What
bit.
I appreciate about Christopher Pike, the layers.
yes, it's like an onion.
Like
instead
an
of a
onion.
book. Less smelly.
And my
Slightly.
last one is weird familial attraction. Jimmy sucked in a breath and his blue eyes got real big. My brother's pretty cute, if I do say so myself. It does run in the family, which is also weird because they're not family.
She does get jealous too when she's talking about
She
Amanda,
does.
and she's like, I guess I'm a little bit jealous. And I'm like, that's your brother's girlfriend?
That's it happens more than once, which is more than it should, honestly.
Yeah. And it's in several books. So it's just raises some questions.
One Pikeism I want to throw in there, and maybe you guys have read more than I have, so maybe it's not, but the Pike I've read, I don't think I've ever read a Pike book where there's not a dream sequence. And it's something that Stephen King does too.
Oh, yeah.
There's always, always, always a dream sequence. And I get it in a way. Like, if you're writing genre, you want to have, you want to show someone's inner life, but you don't want to just have them musing to themselves. So a nice way to physicalize it is a dream. Fine. I sometimes think Pike is like, I just got to fill some pages, man. Got to do something here.
But his dreams are always so interesting. Like the dream
They're
that
symbolic.
opens Whisper of Death, where people are pulling the gloves off and their hands are skeletons.
Yeah,
it's like they're not typical dream stuff.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Lots of dreams.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I've noticed in the Pike I read is lots of dreams and lots of people describing the plots of movies. They seem to be just two things that he really likes doing.
Yes, very much so.
Or stories they're writing, recounting those. Like,
well, no, the worst offender there is Last Act, where they recount almost an entire act of a play that doesn't matter.
Well, also The Immortals, where she describes her dad's screenplay about aliens, and it like goes on for like 6 pages.
You gotta figure, like as a writer, if I have a good idea, I'm saving it.
And
I think Pike has too many ideas.
But that very well may be.
In The Immortal, that little side spinoff ends up turning into, I think it's Starlight Crystal. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, because the Immortal and Starlight Crystal are two of my favorites, and they're weird reptile alien people, like, and they're just randomly put in these books, like, and it doesn't make any sense for some of them too.
Huh.
Mofo, that is the plot of Remember Me 3, the reptile alien people. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Wait, are you serious? There's reptile aliens in Remember Me 3?
Yes.
From a book that's fairly grounded, if you accept afterlife. We're going to reptile aliens. Wow.
Well, book 2 is the transition drug, which combines a sort of nauseating, moonshiny, really unhealthy amount of racism with also a really unhealthy amount of Pike pontificating about the rules of the afterlife and how the universe is put together. Like, it's a blend of his like headiest impulses and his grossest impulses.
Okay.
We're in for a treat.
Well, we are getting to Remember Me 2 in sequel September, so there's
Sign
that.
me up.
Yeah, you got it. Let's do our ratings. Grady, since you are our guest, you may go first.
Okay, so I said, I had a hard time with this because Remember Me 2 cast such a shadow back on Remember Me 1. But like I say, Remember Me 1 taken on its own, I would give it 4 out of 5 pikes. Not 4.5, but I'd give it a solid 4 pikes.
4 pikes, okay. Becca, I'm always interested in what you're going to give instead of pikes.
Well,
so what do you got for me?
I was actually going to give it some pikes today because I couldn't.
Okay.
But are you ready for the pikes?
I am ready, regardless of what you're giving.
Okay. So they're 3 dashing pikes with great lines like a race car, and they have legs and hips, which makes it a 3.5.
3.5. Okay. Okay. So 3. Thank you, Becca. You're always delightful there.
You're welcome. Love you guys.
Cassie, what do you got?
I have, okay, I'm going to give it 2 ratings, but they're the same rating, just extra things. Okay, so the first one is the actual book, and the other one's based off the episode. So my first rating, I'm going to give it, I think, 4 pikes with a syringe with some bubbles. So it's 4.5. And then also I'm going to give it 4 pikes with emergency icing for the butt.
Yeah.
As it's a little additive.
Emergency butt icing. Yes,
yep. Yeah. Chocolate, though. I need it to be chocolate.
Yeah, I agree. It should be chocolate. Okay. I'm giving it full 5. I don't think I've held mine in check. I mean, it is the most pikiest pike that ever piked. And I adored this from beginning to end, and I'm really, really nervous to move into a sequel if it goes as quickly off the rails as they seem to.
I'm so excited.
Well, and I will say one thing is that even though I'm giving the book 4 out of 5 pikes, in terms of a pike protagonist, I will give Sherry Cooper a full 5. Like, Sherry, Joe, and Beth, I think, are some of his better characters. And Garrett. I mean, good character work, Chris.
Well,
I love how familiar that was. Sorry, it was just good work, Chris. It was just like, oh, we're all buddies. I love this so much.
I was like, wait, who's Chris?
Well, it's one of these weird things where I feel like we're really getting the unedited contents of Christopher Pike's mind when you read these books.
Yes.
And so you feel this real, like, it's a little like Stephen King for me. Like, you feel this real familiarity with them because you feel like they put so much of their stuff, either accidentally or on purpose, in their books. But I feel like if I ever met him, it would be just totally casual and chill. Although in reality, it would probably be super awkward, probably more so for him.
Yeah. He
I
does
hope that happens.
in the same way King, absolutely, because like I feel the truth in there, in their writing, and that's important, and I think that's one of the reasons he's so enduring.
Yeah, you do feel like, he really minds his own life and interests for the books. Like, no one could write this many books about the afterlife and all these complicated ideas about reincarnation and alien races and how the universe works without actually having something invested in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Grady, it has been an absolute pleasure having you.
Oh, dude, the pleasure is mine. This was so much fun. And I'm dead serious. Let's do part 2 together because I really want to hear the three of y'all's takes on it.
Well, we will definitely bring. Why don't we just lock you up for the trilogy, my friend?
I haven't read 3, so I only know the back of the book description. So yeah, I'm in.
Okay. Before we go, though, please let our listeners know where they can find you. And I know you have a new book coming out or just came out.
Yeah, no. So all the nonsense you need about me is at gradyhendrix.com. That's Hendrix with an X. My new book is The Final Girl Support Group, and it's out July 13th from Berkeley. It's a book that I wrote the first draft of in 2013, and that is really unusual for me to spend so much time on a book. So this one, I promise, it has noun verb, agreement, and very less typos than my regular books that I write more quickly.
Well, I gotta say, I discovered you with Horrorstor, and I was so tickled by Bronson Pinchot's audio.
Oh, he's good, right? I was so psyched. Yeah,
just so much fun. And it was out of nowhere because I downloaded it because, hey, evil IKEA, that sounds cool. And Bronson Pinchot, whoa.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I'm actually writing the screenplay there's going to be a Horrorstor feature film, and I'm writing the screenplay now.
Oh, awesome.
And it's one of those things where I'm writing, I'm like, oh my God, whoever wrote this book left so many frickin' plot holes, and none of this makes sense. What a moron. Aww. So I'm glad you liked it, though, because now I hate Horrorstor.
And
but love it.
I also, as a writer myself, I understand how it is to hate your own work.
Well, it's also something funny that, in a book, you can say something like, she didn't like going downstairs, but this time she decided to go down them because what the hell? It was better than being upstairs. Mm-hmm. And when you're writing a script, it's like, no, I can't get inside. Why is she going down the stairs? What is a reason that sells her going down the stairs? You can't do little hand waves like that.
And I've been developing a TV series version of my first horror novel, As Good As Gone. And as I'm developing it, because As Good As Gone is told from one point of view. So as I'm developing it, I have to develop all these other points of view, which definitely complicates what people were doing in these ensuing moments. And it's like, now I have to say what they were doing. Yeah, it's fun.
So remember me with that map. That sequence probably very helpful for you. Beth was here. Yes. Where was Joe? Also, can I just ask you all really quickly, Midnight Club coming out is a series or a feature film?
Series.
Where are you on that? Are y'all excited or trepidatious?
Let me put it this way. If they're adapting the Midnight Club, I'm trepidatious. If they're doing what I think they're doing and using the Midnight Club as an anthology wraparound for other Pike work, I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm same. Yeah. What about you guys?
I feel I'm in the same camp as when they started redoing the Resident Evil games. I'm going to keep watching it and paying for it and being excited about it until I have a very solid reason not to, because the more excitement I feel like I have for it, the more they'll make. And that just gives me more stuff to do and watch. So yeah. I'm excited, even if it's a literal adaptation, even though it's not my favorite Pike book at all, just because I'm yes, a Pike book, I'm going to get to see it. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And Flanagan has done no wrong so far.
Yeah, I really like everything that I've watched that he's done.
Yeah, that was my answer to it. Was I'm excited because I like Flanagan. So, and Heather Langenkamp.
I've had the wonderful privilege of having watched him throughout his career, because I was part of a programming for a tiny film festival that showed his short film Oculus way back.
Oh wow!
And so I saw Absentia when it premiered at a film festival, and it's been really cool seeing a guy that I've seen since the very beginning of his career do such wonderful things like Dr. Sleep. I love him.
I told you I'd watch that after one of our other podcasts, and I still haven't. I'm sorry.
You don't have homework from me. I know you'll love it. So
you end our episodes by telling us we have homework, Cooper. Oh.
well, our listeners have homework. But before we do that, Becca, where can we find you online?
Yes. Okay, so I have my own blog where I talk about books, which you can find at astoldbybex.wordpress.com. I'm also on Twitter at astoldbybex and on Instagram where I, again, talk about books, which would be at readwithbex.
And Cassie, how about you?
I also have a blog. I haven't been using it as much because I've been more focused on art stuff, but it's letsgetgalactic.com. And then you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Control-Alt-Cassie, like on your keyboard, CTRL-ALT-CASSIE. And then I have an art shop, which is shopletsgetgalactic.com.
And if you are rainbow fans at all, you need to go to Cassie's shop because rainbows and horror, that's really it.
I buy everything she puts out.
Love you guys. Thank you. I appreciate you more than I can say.
And you can find me online at coopersbeckett.com and at coopersbeckett on all the social media. I will again make the caveat that if you don't like politics, stay off my Twitter because I will just block you because I'm sick of the shit, honestly. You can find my art at Beckett Arts, and that's it. Yes, that's it. So, Cassie, where can they find our show?
You can follow us on all social media. We are at the PikeCast. It's very simple. We'd really love it if you'd share your Christopher Pike books with us and use the hashtag #ShowUsYourPike. And then we're also on Patreon. So if you'd like to help us keep the lights on and keep our transcription services and stuff going, you can support us at patreon.com/thepikecast.
I love the keep the lights on. It's so PBS pledge drive. You know, like we don't like doing this. We know you don't like listening to it. But where can you get quality programming like the?
I'm sitting here in the dark, guys.
I haven't seen the sunshine in 3 whole days.
Listeners, your homework for next time is Chain Letter. We're going back to the beginning. I think this was his second book. It was still part of the Point Horror series back then. So that should be fun. Grady, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you for the sequel.
I'm in. Remember me.
Woo!
You survived the night, friends. You can peek out from under your covers and see the first blues of dawn out the window. Thanks for spending the night with the PikeCast, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Until then, Pikers, pleasant dreams.